hallway, which is used for everyday purposes, and then an emergency door on a separate part of the room that has an automatic alarm so that when this door is opened, it automatically will alarm and notify everyone else in the building that something is going on in which they need to evacuate the building. Now, the main doors would also be fitted, at least nearby it, probably not on the door, but near the door, with a panic button that could be manually activated to notify the rest of the school to evacuate, so that there's some flexibility on initiating that alarm. Also, these emergency exit doors would go directly to the outside. This is a schematic of the first floor. So as soon as you open those doors, you're outside of that building. These would have to be designed so that they cannot be chained closed to prevent what happened at Virginia Tech. And they should also be designed to allow people who have evacuated through these doors to then re-enter the school through those same doors if they need to. The reason this would be a needed feature is that at the Jonesboro school shooting, what happened was two shooters were sitting outside of the school when they pulled the fire alarm to force people to evacuate the school. And then they shot the students and teachers as they were evacuating the school. So if that were to happen, then everybody could evacuate the building if they realize that they're being shot at from the outside. The ones that are near the shooter and getting shot at could then go back inside the building and possibly cross that common hallway into the other classrooms on the other side and exit through their emergency exit doors. So these emergency exits could be in two forms. They could be emergency escape windows, or they could be direct exiting doors. The doors are really the fastest option and the most highly recommended way of evacuating the school. Windows could be used as a cheaper option where there might be a lot less retrofitting to existing schools than putting in a door in each classroom. But realize that it would be a less effective option because evacuating through these windows wouldn't be quite as fast as through an exit door. But it would still serve the same function, and so it could be used. Now, when we consider the evacuation routes of both the existing school on the left with the direct exiting school on the right, you can see here in the typical school, people are all congregating into the common hallway, making themselves very easy targets for a school shooter, whereas on the right side, people are more spread out. They're directly leaving the school and are not concentrating as easy targets for the shooter. So now we're going to go through a scenario comparing two responses, comparing what occurs during a lockdown response and what would occur during a direct exiting response on the right side. So here we have people represented as pink hearts who are alive. They're in their classrooms in each scenario. Now we see represented by the red frowny face a school shooter who is coming into a classroom on the left side of the hallway. So now the shooting incident starts. The shooter is standing in the doorway on the left side under the lockdown procedure. The shooter is blocking the only way that the students and teachers in that classroom can leave that room. So they have no response except to be shot. In the direct exiting scenario, that classroom has an additional exit that will go directly outside the building. So the students and teachers in that classroom can respond. They can leave the area that the shooting is occurring. And this response is almost immediate. It only takes the time that the other students take to recognize what's going on and to run out a door. So here, the fastest response you could have in a school shooting is taking place with the direct exiting. So again, in each situation, in the lockdown situation, everyone in a classroom has been shot. In the direct exiting situation, some of the students or teacher have exited the classroom where the shooting occurred and are no longer in harm's way. Now, that person in the direct exiting scenario walked through that door and set off an alarm throughout the rest of the school that something was going on, that they should evacuate the building. Since this is a direct exiting setup, the evacuation can occur within 1 minute. So everybody starts to evacuate in the direct exiting scenario. In the lockdown scenario, all the students and teachers are locking their one and only door into their classroom to try to prevent the shooter from gaining access to those classrooms. But remember, it's very easy to open up those locked doors. Whether they're wood or metal, a gun such as a shotgun placed in the right spot can open up those doors with one shot. So those locked doors maybe buy a few seconds of protection. So here, in the lockdown scenario, a second classroom has been breached and the students and teacher in that classroom have been shot. In the direct exiting scenario, the entire school has been evacuated. So by the time the shooter has shot through that second door, or shot through the first door as doors were being locked, and they get into the second classroom, the classroom is then empty because all the students and teacher have evacuated. So now the police arrive, as represented by the blue smiley face, and they can then respond to neutralize the shooter. This could be responding police officers or the school resource officer. So at this point, in the lockdown scenario, 4 classrooms have been breached and their students and teachers in those classrooms have been shot. In the direct exiting scenario, the school has been completely evacuated except for those people who were in the initial site of shooting that were shot and unable to evacuate. So then the police can neutralize the shooter. So you can see the difference in the number of people who get shot in the 2 different scenarios. So this was looking at a first floor scenario where the exit door can go immediately outside the building and onto ground level. What's going to happen on a second floor? Some new school buildings are built as multi-level buildings in order to save space on the school campus. So that makes a little bit more of a problem, but the same basic principles still apply. So here on the second floor, on the left side, the only difference between the first floor in the diagram here is that the exit doors at the end of the common hallways empty out into stairs that go down to the ground level. So that people exiting, as you see on the right side, will do the exact same thing, go out through their only classroom door into a common hallway where they're again concentrated into that hallway as likely targets, and then out the exit doors and downstairs. A direct exiting scenario for the second floor, you could simply have the same function as the first floor direct exiting scenario, where each exit door empties out into a set of stairways. Now, this would be the most effective alternative approach for the second floor, where each classroom has its own exit stairway. But obviously, this would also be the most expensive. It could be used for current buildings as a retrofit or for new buildings, and it's not unheard of to have these stairs on the outside of buildings. In fact, some movie theaters use this method for emergency exiting. As you can see here, this is a movie theater that has a direct exit on a second floor. So there are other alternatives that could be used that still serve the same function. You could reduce the number of stairs by adding a balcony or a covered hallway with doors on either end, so that there is a common hallway, but it's separate from the normal common hallway used for everyday purposes. So this would still be expensive, but maybe a little less expensive and have a different appearance with less stairwell. If this was a new building, these emergency exiting hallways would probably be internal to the building. If it was a retrofit on a current building, it could be a covered balcony. You would want the balcony and the stairs to be covered because if you're in an area that's prone to snow and ice, you wouldn't want to have ice or snow blocking your emergency exit. Another alternative, instead of having hallways connecting the stairwell, you could connect the classrooms together so that instead of having an emergency exit that it goes directly outside, some of them might go into a neighboring classroom. And then classrooms at the end of hallways would have direct exiting stairwell. Now, this is an option. It would be much less expensive because you wouldn't have to build a balcony or another hallway. You would only need to install doors. However, this would slow down the response somewhat because there are objects in the classroom. You have desks and chairs and various things that would not make these real evacuation routes in terms of building codes, and it would be a much slower response, but it would still serve the same function and could be a cheaper alternative. Then an even cheaper alternative would be to not have any external stairs and to have only the emergency exit doors connecting the classrooms. But in order for that to work, you would have to install doors inside the common hallway. Because in this setup, the students would still be using the same exits that are present in the common hallway. So if there was a shooter in that common hallway, you would need to stop their ability to shoot at both of the exits. So by putting double doors, two sets of double doors inside that common hallway, you divide it up so that you're protecting those exits. Now you would want two sets of double doors because the shooter could stand at one of these doors and prop open the doors to shoot in both directions. So if you only have a single set of double doors, they could still shoot at both exits without much effort. But if you have two sets of double doors, there will always be an exit that is protected that the shooter can't get access to.